what I would like to start to organize on that, with the board's permission, is basically a timeline. We start with a higher date and back up so that we can have some kind of a plan as to when this piece needs to be completed, type thing. And at the same time, again, with the board's permission, I'd like to contact Kevin Daly. Kevin has offered his assistance with that. Kevin is very qualified as far as that whole line of process goes. He's been with MAC, he's down with the hospital doing HR stuff, so I think he'll make a real good advisor, is the best way to put it. So I'd like to contact him and maybe sit down with him and kind of work through that timeline, because he would have a pretty good idea. It's going to take you X number of weeks to complete this, and try to get that laid out so we can get started. It's just that simple.
And you must have read my mind, because I had notes on that, and I had kind of gone back through all my meeting notes from those public sessions. So, because I was going to kind of ask where we were at with that, and I'm willing to put time into that as well if you need help with that.
Okay. If I get something set up with Kevin, I'll give you a shout.
Absolutely.
So we can all,
because I'd
all
like
get together.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
My thought on that we might start talking about is forming
The committee.
committee at this point.
But there's going to be, again, and this is just me thinking, but there's going to be several stages to that whole thing as far as what you're going to be looking at, or where you're going to be, what you're going to be working for. So, again, I'd like to kind of, Kevin has been through a lot of this stuff, and I'd kind of like to get his thoughts on
How to structure it?
where to, chicken and egg type thing, which comes first. Make sure
was-
we get the process right.
Am I correct? Kevin was on
He
the
was on the original.
on that group.
2010.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, he was.
He was the original committee when we looked at
There
it
were two
first.
people that worked
Okay.
on that, him and
Don and
Love.
Yep.
Okay.
and-
I'm just trying to put all the pieces together.
Yep.
So he's got, that background on
Okay.
it, and he's been, I think, to a couple meetings and stuff since then, so.
What would one of the questions I had is, what would the typical process be for us to begin to form a committee? Do we request people submit a letter of interest if they wanted to be on the committee?
Well, I think
or-
that's something, how does the board feel about that? That would be my suggestion. Kind of
That's
reach out.
kind of the thought
I'm
process
thinking we have
that I
some
had
sort of
as
an
well.
application
Yep.
process.
Yeah, and it
to-
might be worth, though, getting that out to start having people send us letters of interest
Yep.
that they'd like to serve on that committee, so that, it takes a little while to get information out and people to get that kind of thing back, but then obviously we have to filter through it, but I
Yep.
think that would be good to start.
But I think it would also be good to get a sense of how big the committee should be, what is its role, and what are the criteria for serving on it, because we might only get the number of applicants we want, or we might get more, and I don't want it to be an arbitrary or ad hoc process. I want there to be a set thing in terms of someone has experience
Right.
in business, or someone has run a town, or whatever. I mean, something, I mean, not to say that it just being a resident wouldn't be a qualifying, but you know what I mean, just so that nobody can say, well, why did you put so and so on it and not me?
Well, I think we have
I
to
don't want to.
determine what
What is it going to
the
do first?
format of the committee wants to look
Exactly.
like. I think there was, from my notes, I think it seemed like that was always thrown out there, that it was like a 5-person committee, 2 from select board, 3 from community. Those were what I had in my notes. I don't know where that came from, but
I think in general discussion is where that,
Okay.
maybe Todd threw those out. I'm not
Okay.
sure,
Maybe,
Jim, I'm
yeah.
not sure.
It'll be a cross-section.
It's got to be a cross-section of the community. The one thing that
Absolutely.
I have seen state statutes that every member of this board can be on that committee if they choose to be. So whether they choose to participate or not, that's a whole nother story, but you can't exclude a select board member from being on that committee.
that makes sense.
So, but that's,
Yeah,
one of
a
the-
member
just-
or two.
no,
One of
every
the-
single member
board.
has the option.
But this is the
One of the
search
thoughts
committee.
that
This-
we-
I understand that.
Right, we can't forget,
Yeah.
one other thought is that a committee such as this, once it's formed and given an assignment by this board,
Right.
has to be, the meetings have to be warned.
Oh, yes, they do.
Anytime they
They're
have a
public
meeting.
meetings, they have to have minutes and everything.
And then their findings are brought back to
Correct.
us
And the board
to
decides,
review.
makes whatever decisions, if any. Yep, exactly.
Matt, I'm not sure you're aware or how important it is, but Kevin Daly is a former attorney. He's got some legal.
Town agent.
Yeah.
He's been on, I think, the ZBA, if not both, the ZBA.
He was on ZBA.
He was chair of the ZBA for a few years.
Chair for years. I mean, he's
Yeah.
a very
He's-
practical.
Yeah, I've heard his name thrown out there a little bit in
And he has massive
conversations.
HR experience, so he brings not only the background of the original search and research,
Yes.
but also he has background in how to go about selecting this committee.
Okay.
So, you know, that's one of the reasons we want to contact
Sure.
him first.
He's agreed to help with this? Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Informally. I want to
yeah.
approach him again to make sure he hasn't changed his mind. But
Well, it sounds like that's a good place to start.
Well, that's
And
good,
then
yeah.
if we can, I think, if, maybe by I'm just throwing this out there, if we can talk to Kevin before the next select board meeting, it would be good to then try and narrow down what we want that committee to look like, so we could start to ask people to submit letters of interest.
yeah.
The process of selecting outside the board candidates just needs to be fair and open.
Absolutely.
So that nobody can say, well, you've stacked it this way, or you've stacked it that way, or, you know, it needs to be
But I
open
think we have to,
process.
as long as you've defined what that committee's gonna look like, then
Exactly.
it's fair and open.
Yep.
Okay. We'll get something started.